Today's lecture is on buying function in retail. Let's start with buying. What is buying? Buying is a process of acquiring or coming into the possession of a product or any other asset by paying a mutually agreed price. Now, buying is a phenomena which is being observed by all of us in our daily life. As a student, you go to a stationery shop, you purchase pen, paper, pencil or any other product. What happens is that the ownership is transferred from the shop owner. The shop owner transfers the ownership of that particular product, what you are trying to buy, and you pay a price for it. So it leads to the definition of buying. Buying is a process of acquiring or coming into possession of a product or any other asset by paying a mutually agreed value or a price. Now, in retail context, buying is of two types. Number one, when a retailer buys from a wholesaler, and number two, when a customer buys from the retailer. So there is a change of ownership at two places. Number one, when a retailer buys from the wholesaler, the ownership is transferred to the retailer, and in second scenario, when a customer buys from the retailer, the ownership is transferred from the retailer to the customer. In retail, buying is being carried out by a specialized person who is known as a buyer. Buyer has to negotiate with the suppliers and has to purchase the right product at right time with right price so as to please or satisfy the customers. Now, the function of buying involves planning, and in retail context it is known as open to buy or OTB plan. Such a plan is being carried out by the retailers to control the activities which involves the acquisition of products from the suppliers, strike a balance between the demand and the supply, provide quality products to the customers, develop long-term relationships with the suppliers, and accelerate the sales and profits of the company. Now, buying depends on the type of organization, on the type of retail organization, how big or small the organization is. If it is a small organization, then the retailers typically prefer to do a cooperative buying, where all the individual retailers or the proprietor owners, they come across on a single platform and they purchase the product together so as to reach the economies of scale. Economies of scale means that the cost of product is reduced. The cost of product is reduced so as to increase the profits. More number of units are produced. Secondly, the buying could be centralized or decentralized depending upon the type of store. That is, centralized buying means that a main office or a main retailer or multinational retailer, say for example, is buying the product for all of its chain, for all the chains, or say for a region, a particular region or a particular division. In case of decentralized buying, the individual stores or the individual shops, they carry out the purchase. So it may depend upon the type of products in the multinational scenarios, where buying of certain products could be centralized and certain other products could be decentralized depending upon the usage. The another type of buying could be made by a buying committee, which involves the managers, the merchandise managers, the sales managers, store manager, everyone, they come together and forms a committee and they decide and recommend what is to be purchased at what time, depending upon the situation or the demand of a particular product. In the next case, it could be through a buying office, a centralized buying office who is carrying out all the buying functions. Whatever the case may be, the buyer, as a result of buying, they should be able to stock the right products at the right time, in right quantity, at the right price, so as to please or satisfy the customers. Now next comes the roles and responsibilities of the buyers. Traditional buying involves simply buying from the wholesalers and providing the right quantity, right, at right price, doing a bit of negotiations so as to satisfy the customers. However, with the changing scenarios, the buyer has to do a lot of other responsibilities, or has to carry out a lot of other responsibilities such as planning, forecasting, licensing, etc. With the coming of multi-brand outlets or multinational retailers, buying function is being carried out. There is a whole team of buyers, which includes buying manager, training, assistant buying managers, trainees, and they spend a lot on training of the buyers. However, if there is a small retail chain or a proprietorship owner, such activities of buying is carried out by the store manager or with the help of local sales guys who are working in the stores. So however, whatever is the level of buyer in any company, the basic or the key responsibilities of the buyers is to maintain a smooth flow of communications with the suppliers, negotiating with the suppliers about the price, the delivery dates, etc., seeking suggestions from the buying teams and the other internal departments of the company, providing the correct information about the products to the suppliers, then also collecting the products from the suppliers on the predefined dates, and tracking the competition activities. That is also very important, that how your competitors are buying the products and at what price. Now next comes the factors affecting the role of the buyers. The role of a buyer could be affected by the size of the organization. A smaller sized organization has a limited number of customers, so the role of the buyer is limited. However, if the organization is big, such as Walmart or any other multinational or global retailers, then the complexity of the buyer increases. Next factor which affects the role of buyer is the competition, the level of competition, because as a buyer you have to be innovative, you have to carry out innovative business strategies so as to outperform your competitors. And then all the buying, the role of the buyer is also affected by the buying environment, such as sometimes if you are a global retailer, then you source the products from different countries and you sell the products to different countries. So depending upon the retail environment, or depending upon the country specific environment, such as the economy, the government, the ease of buying the products, so buyer has to take care of all those things or all those activities into the considerations. Also, the customer is very important. How the customers how the trend is changing, because the customers, they are always looking for the best product at right time. The value, the concept of giving out the value product is very important. So the buyer has to take the customers into consideration. Similarly, technology is one of the factors which is affecting the role of buyers. The technology you are using today is obsolete tomorrow, so buyer has to constantly innovate so as to come on the same platform. Next is, Apart from main buyer, there is also assistant buyer who assist the buyer in carrying out the buying functions. The companies, multinational, they are spending a lot of monies on the training programs so as to update and to help the company in long run, such as the buyers could perform the functions independently and to compete with the other retailers. Now, we have already discussed about the changing role of the buyer in the previous section. So buyer has changed from the traditional buying abilities, or what the buyer was doing in the traditional buying situations, to the present scenarios where buyer is not only negotiating with the vendors but also doing the forecasting, the planning, carrying out and collecting the information about the latest trends in retailing, information about the vendors. So doing a lot of research works. That is how the role of the buyer has changed. So as I said earlier, that buyer has to acquire right products at right time with right quantity so as to satisfy the customers. So you have to understand the apprehension of the customers, and then also you have to take care of the antecedent behavior of the customers, what the customers how the customers or how your sales was there in the past, and then you have to forecast it accordingly. So next is the difference between the buyer and the merchandise manager. Buyer is a retail buyer is involved in activities such as selecting and meeting with the suppliers. However, merchandise manager is a step ahead of a buyer who carries out the administrative and the PR activities. So a merchandise manager is always in constant touch with the top management, whereas a buyer, if he has to get in touch with the top management, then he has to follow the merchandise manager. A buyer has to be a person who should be able to negotiate with the suppliers on terms of, because sometimes there are budget constraints. So in the last section we'll discuss about evaluating the buyer's performance. Buyer's performance could be evaluated on the basis of achievement of goals such as how effectively he has contributed to the fulfillment of GMROI. GMROI is gross margin, return on investment, that is calculated by dividing the gross margin upon the average inventory cost. If the ratio comes out to be more than 1, that means that the company is in the profits, whereas if the ratio is less than 1, then it means that the company is at loss. Next thing on which the performance of the buyer could be evaluated could be the negotiation skills. Negotiation skill means that sometimes there is a budget constraints, and the retailer and the buyer has to negotiate with the vendors. As a buyer, you don't have to be a belligerent person, but however, you should be assertive. You should be able to negotiate. And then buyer has to be a person, a bonhomie person who is very friendly with the vendors, with the customers, so as to collect all the information and able to forecast and able to plan the buying activities accordingly. Next is the timeliness of the buyer is very important, so as to give as I said earlier, as now I'm repeating it, that the buyer has to give the right products in the right quantities at right price to satisfy or please the customers. So this is all about buying function in retail. In the next section we will discuss about buying for different retail formats. If you have any questions, you're always welcome. Thank you.